Hey everyone. So in the last post, we looked at the New York Times COVID dataset on Fidap, and we just did some very, very basic analysis to figure out what states had the most infections. We're going to go a little bit beyond that today, and we're going to join this with population data and come up with really more interesting insights that take into account the per capita infection rate instead of just the total infection rate, which is obviously you're going to have the highest population states have the highest infections if you just look that way. So the data sets we're going to use first, as before, we're using the New York Times COVID data set, which is over here. We're also going to use a population data set, and this population data set is from the American Community Survey by the Census Bureau, loaded into BigQuery public data sets. In the ACS dataset, if you click on tables, there's one particular table which I have open over here called county underscore 2018 underscore 5 years. That probably has the most relevant data for us. It's population data, so not super concerned about it being a few years old. If we click on the Fields tab over here, you can see that we actually have 25 pages of fields. So we have a few hundred fields available to us. We'll just be using some basic ones, though, for this analysis. So we'll be doing this in Jupyter Notebook. If you click on the Artifacts tab over here, you can see that this notebook over here, Fidap Demo COVID-19 infection rates, is the one that we'll be looking at. And if you just hit this Open in Colab button, you'll actually be able to run all of this on your side. Just one thing to note before running this notebook, you will have to pip install Fidap as well as GeoPandas and Shapely. And you'll also have to grab your API key from your account section. You can comment this section out and just paste your API key over here to get this working. So this over here is the pip install command. The next two commands over here, we use the fidap.sql endpoint and we query our COVID dataset in the New York Times in BigQuery public data. And we also query the ACS 5-year community survey and get that data as well. This next query is a little bit more complex, but this is the key query that actually joins together both of these tables. And the result of this is a very nice table that joins together our census data as well as our COVID data on a county basis. And we pull that into a data frame over here, infection rate query, that's going to be very useful to us for the rest of this notebook. To get the state level numbers, we actually just group by state name. And we just use this base table over here to group by state name. And we're actually doing this within pandas, not within SQL. Once we do that, we can see the states with the lowest per capita infection rates. So Hawaii, Vermont, Puerto Rico are the top 3 states with the lowest infection rates. And we can also see the states with the highest infection rates, and those are Utah, South Dakota, and North Dakota. Next, we do a little bit more analysis on the data, all within pandas. And so over here, we create a histogram for deaths per capita, as well as for infections per capita over here. And you can see the code that we use over here. You can modify this code as well. And finally, we do a little scatter plot to effectively correlate deaths and infections. And you can see that the correlation is pretty good over here, but it's not 100% perfect. So there are definitely variations in terms of that. Finally, we can do a quick visualization of COVID and infection rates and on a map. You can kind of see that the coasts, Washington, Oregon, California, as well as the east area kind of have the lower rates, with the exception of Rhode Island, and the middle of the country tends to have higher rates, which is somewhat surprising, as I would have thought denser areas on the coast would have higher rates, and there would be lower rates where population is less dense in the middle of the country. So that's about it for this video and this blog post, where we dove a little bit deeper into the COVID data and we actually joined it with population data. And we found some interesting trends in terms of the per capita infection rate in states. And we're going to do some further analysis on this particular data set in the days and weeks to come. So stay tuned. Thanks for listening. Bye.